everybody. If you know me, you probably know that I studied abroad this past semester at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. So, if you're also familiar with Scotland, you'll know that it's really freaking cold and cloudy and windy all of the time. Now, here's the thing, especially for a guy like me, it makes it very easy to make the excuse to never go outside. That's what I ended up doing. But the thing is, for all of the exciting, fun things that I did while I was abroad, I was actually fairly unhappy for a lot of the time, mainly just because of who I was and just a lot of different things. And so what I decided was that at the end of my finals period, I would go do something on my own. I would go on a trip somewhere, just kind of spontaneously, and kind of break out of that that kind of shell of unhappiness and trying to change something about myself. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to go somewhere off the beaten path, and I decided I'm going to go to Croatia. And here's a couple reasons why. I decided to go there because I've heard so many good things about it. It was a bit farther away. At the same time, I was really eager after being in Scotland for all that time and being, cold. I was really excited to show off that beach bod that I'd definitely been working on instead of sitting alone in my room eating haggis chips all day. But so I went. And so I was telling myself, okay, to make things even more challenging, I'm not going to give myself an itinerary. I'm going to book a flight one day, and then I'm going to book a flight from another city like 2 weeks later. No big deal. So after a few drinks, I actually, I pressed the button, I booked my tickets, and then proceeded to freak out because I was like, what the hell have I done? This is ridiculous. I have no plans. This is not the kind of thing I should be doing. And so finally I say, okay, you know what? No, I'm going to try and embrace this. I'm going to try and embrace this and go and, put myself there in the moment, on my own, in a different country, for 2 weeks. No big deal, right? So I start packing up, and I'm, packing up and trying to figure out what to bring, and I'm like, you know what? All right, here's what I'll do. I'll prepare, and I'll learn all these important phrases that I'll need to know. And I'm a little out of practice, so I wrote them down. But of course, in preparation, I learned some Croatian. I learned my please and thank you, which is molim and hvala. I learned hello, which is dobar dan, and goodbye, which is do viđenja. Of course, because I'm an ignorant American, I had to learn please, sorry, not please and thank you. I had to learn sorry, I don't speak Croatian, which is oprostite, ne znam hrvatski. And because I'm a paranoid person as well, I had to learn which was pustite me na miro šupak, which is get away from me, you asshole. Spoiler alert, I ended up almost using that. So on to the trip. I'm at the airport, I'm getting ready to go, I'm preparing myself, I'm building up all that confidence, getting ready to go past the point of no return, and I'm in line at the gate, and I look at my ticket and I realize, oh dear, I have not gotten my visa signed. They're gonna deport me. So I'm in line freaking out, and I'm calling my dad. I'm like, Dad, what do? I'm about to get on a flight to go to Croatia on my own. What do? I don't have any idea. They're gonna deport me. And he's like, just calm down. And that was that. So I finally get to the gate, and they ended up signing it off because actually nothing happened. There's no big deal in the end. So I get on my flight. I go to Croatia, and the first city I'm there is Pula, which is in northwestern Croatia, and I'm walking around this really ancient city, seeing all these interesting things, and I'm freaking out, of course, because I'm totally out of my element. I'm in the center of town, and I'm looking at this big fountain, which is a map of the town, and out of the corner of my eye, I see these two kids, like these 10-year-old kids, just talking to each other, and they're talking to each other very fast in Croatian. I can't understand them, and I'm just like, all right, they're totally talking about me, because they're over there, and I'm over here. There's no way they're not talking about me. They've got to be talking about me, and I'm just like loading up on the back of my tongue, like, "Pustite me na miro." I'm like getting ready to say that at him, and I'm getting ready to like kick him in the shins if I have to. I'm freaking out, and finally, of course, nothing happens, because they're kids, they're 10-year-old kids. What are they doing? So nothing happens, and I go about my day. Later on in the trip, though, I'm in another city. I'm in a hostel, and if you know hostels, they're mainly populated by very young people, college students like myself, and the occasional 50-year-old grizzled Texan guy. So this guy that I met, his name was Jeff, And he's telling me all these interesting stories. I'm sharing a room with him. He's telling me all these interesting stories about his travels. He's been traveling around the world for like over a decade. All these interesting things. And through a series of misunderstandings, I come to believe that he is Rick Steves for some reason. Now, if you don't know, Rick Steves is the guy who wrote my travel book that I had with me, like a Bible, like clutching to at every turn. And I'm like, all right, it all adds up. This guy's Rick Steves, I know it. And of course, in true Rick Steves fashion, in the middle of the night, he gets up, in the middle of the night, walks across the room, grabs a beer, opens it, drinks all of it, burps, and then goes back to sleep. And I'm like, yes, this is the life. Teach me your secrets, please. And so in the morning, I'm getting ready. I'm about to ask him, like, all right, like, can you sign my book? I'm about to ask him that. And finally, I look at my book, I turn it over, and Rick Steves is a clean-shaven redhead, and Jeff looks like he walked out of the Dukes of Hazzard. Like, this is not the same guy. I have made a terrible misjudgment. But even so, despite this misunderstanding, I still had a lot to learn from him. And so I asked him some things like, what advice can you give me about my travels? What should I do? And he's like, are you a heavy drinker? And I'm like, no. And he's like, all right. This popular drink here in Croatia is called grappa. It's really strong and it'll have you on the floor in seconds if you're not a heavy drinker. And I'm like, so don't drink the grappa? He's like, yeah, I don't drink the grappa. Spoiler alert, I drank the grappa. That was in the next city that I went to, and that was Dubrovnik, which, if you know Game of Thrones, is where they film King's Landing. So I'm there, I'm in this hostel, and it's owned by this, this Croatian woman in her like 50s, and it's run by her two sons. It's really interesting. And the last night I'm there, she calls everybody that's staying at the hostel to gather in their apartment. They're like, we're gonna have a drinking night, and I'm like, when in Rome, or when in Dubrovnik, I guess, because it's a different city. And so we go to this drinking night, and I look on their counter, and they've got this giant vase, like the size of a watermelon, filled with this like clear liquid, and I'm like, what is that? And then she lifts off this big cloth stopper, fumes fill the room, and I'm like, oh, that's the grappa, okay. she pours everybody like a big glass, and I'm like, yeah, it's no big deal. And so I'm there, enjoying the environment for once, finally kind of out of my element, but in the right element, surrounded by strangers who don't really know each other, but kind of having this sense of community for once. It was a really great experience. I was really having a great time. And then I drank the grappa. And long story short, I should have listened to Rick Steves. So the next morning, I get my flight back to Edinburgh, slightly hungover, and I land and I take the tram back to my flat. I walk in the door. I open the door to the kitchen, and my flatmate's there cooking food. And he turns to me. He's like, "Where have you been? I haven't seen you in a while." I'm like, dude, I've been out of the country for like 2 weeks. And he's like, oh, I didn't even notice. So I guess the moral of the story is I should get out more.